Okay, what I want to try to do is I want to create a video where I go over the PowerPoints that I'm hoping you guys will watch before we come to class and actually have to work with the material. So, with that in mind, I'm going to give this a shot. With Unit 3-7, we're taking a little bit of a break from the idea of law as an instrument of social control, and we're going to talk about law and dispute resolution for a little bit. Now, what this means is that we're going to look at the different ways that you can use the law to resolve a dispute or argument that you might have with a neighbor, a husband, your boss, whomever. We're going to start with the 3 stages of dispute resolution. We're going to start with them in order. In other words, whenever you have a disagreement or grievance with someone, what's the first thing you do, the second thing you do, and the third thing that you do. I'm going to end this video there, but I'm also going to talk a little bit about different forms of dispute resolution as well. And I do want you guys to take a look at those videos as well for class next week. The first stage is the grievance or the pre-conflict stage. This is when you are involved in a situation that you think is unfair or unjust towards you. And this is the time when the party or parties involved consider grounds for resentment or complaint. Well, what does this mean? Well, this is just a real fancy way of saying this is when you decide you're pissed off and you have a reason for being pissed off. Now, when it comes to dispute, the situation may be either real or imaginary. And if you guys watch enough court TV, Judge Judy or Judge Joe Brown, I think it is, you'll get a pretty good example of people who have disputes with other individuals, and sometimes the dispute or the problem is all in one person's mind. An important term I want you to know is the word monadic. Monadic. This term means that there is only one person or one entity involved. Another way of putting this is to say that you simply haven't voiced your complaints to the other person yet. You haven't voiced your complaint to your boss that you're not happy that he's not paying you for overtime. I like to use divorce as an example. Most of you will probably get divorced at some point in your life, and I've been divorced myself. The grievance or the pre-conflict stage is when you start thinking that you are really tired of your spouse. Silly example, feeding your pet hamsters to his or her exotic snakes, and that spousal homicide is not the answer, and maybe you want to file for divorce. Now, at this stage, however, you have not told your spouse, your husband, your wife, whatever, that you are unhappy with them. You're just thinking to yourself that you're unhappy, but you have not shared your grievance with the other party. The second stage is the conflict stage, and this is when you appraise the other person of what you're unhappy about and why you're unhappy about it. If you cannot resolve it at the grievance stage, in other words, if you can't just keep it internal, find a resolution to the problem that way, then you enter the conflict stage. Okay. How can you resolve a problem at the grievance stage? How can you resolve a problem with another person if you don't tell them that there's a problem? Well, it's not uncommon for people who, let's say they have issues with their neighbors, to rather than confront the neighbors, they might just sell their house or they might just pack up and move to another apartment. That is a situation that's resolved at the grievance stage because you have never confronted your noisy neighbors. The conflict stage is where the aggrieved or pissed off party confronts the offending party and communicates his or her resentment or feelings of injustice to the person or group. The term that I want you to remember from this is the term dyadic. Dyadic, that means it involves only two parties. The conflict stage never brings in a mediator or negotiator. It is just a disagreement between two people. It's still relatively private. This is the point where you tell your spouse that they either give up their exotic snake collection or that you are filing for divorce. And again, a lot of times disputes are resolved at the conflict stage. This is actually ideal because it's cost effective. There's less chance of people getting irritated or somebody feeling like a loser and getting resentful. All right. Now the third stage is the dispute stage, and subsequent videos are going to talk all about resolving conflict at the dispute stage. But I want to talk about what the dispute stage is. And this is the point where the conflict is made public. In other words, you bring in a third party. You bring in a third party. Okay? Oh, and I have it in my next point here. It's characterized by the involvement of a third party in the disagreement. It could be a judge, a lawyer, a mediator, a negotiator, a clergyman, a doctor, another neighbor. Whoever it is, it's somebody that's outside the original dispute, not one of the two involved parties. It's a third person that you bring in to help you resolve the dispute. I also want you to know the term triadic. And this means that three parties are involved. It's not just you and your husband anymore. This is when you go to your lawyer and file for divorce from your snake collecting spouse. Maybe even try to sue him for the pain and suffering that you've experienced because of the loss of all your pet hamsters. Okay, so what do I want you to take away from this? I want you to take away the process of dispute resolution. The first stage is the grievance stage. This is when you decide that you've been wrong. The second stage is the conflict stage. This is when you confront the party that you think has wronged you. And the third stage is the dispute stage, when you bring in a third person to help you and the other party resolve your differences.